The Sleeping Giants. The Galactic Alliance Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Zorix of the Taurian Empire finished his presentation. His massive frame, covered in iridescent scales, seemed to dominate the circular room as he gestured dismissively at the holographic display. "These human artifacts are nothing more than primitive curiosities," Zorix declared, his voice rumbling through the chamber. "Their technology was obsolete even before their disappearance 80 years ago. The Alliance would be wasting resources to investigate further." High Counselor Neva, her crystalline form refracting light into rainbow patterns across the chamber walls, leaned forward. "The humans were always an unpredictable species, Admiral. Their absence from galactic affairs remains unexplained. Extinction or retreat to their home system. Either way, they are irrelevant now," Zorix replied. "Their rusting ships couldn't withstand modern weaponry even when they were operational." The Council murmured in agreement. Humanity had been a brief, unremarkable chapter in galactic history. Primitive apes who stumbled into space travel before they were ready, then disappeared when confronted with truly advanced civilizations. Only one figure remained unconvinced. Kirevex, chief Sinorchaeologist of the Merindian Collective, sat quietly at the back of the chamber. Her slender, feathered form was nearly motionless, but her compound eyes flickered with calculation. The Alliance was making a mistake, one she had seen repeated throughout history. 3 weeks later, Kirevex stood inside an abandoned human outpost on the edge of what had once been their territory. The facility on Proxima Centauri's fourth planet had been left untouched since the humans vanished, deemed too obsolete to bother salvaging. "Atmospheric processing at 50%, Dr. Vex," chirped her assistant, a young Merindian named Hallo. "Strange that such primitive technology still functions after all this time." Kirevex ran a sensor over a control panel covered in dust. "That's what interests me, Hallo. Why does it still function? Where is the power coming from?" The energy readings made no sense. The outpost showed minimal power usage, yet something was drawing massive amounts of energy somewhere in the complex. Something hidden. The Alliance report stated all human power generation was fusion-based, Tallow said, consulting his datapad. "Inefficient and unstable." "Yes, that's what they want everyone to believe," Kirevex replied softly. "But I studied too many extinct civilizations to accept the official narrative." They moved deeper into the facility, past abandoned workstations and dormitories frozen in time. Personal items still lay where they'd been left, meals half-eaten, messages half-composed. The humans hadn't fled in panic. They'd departed methodically, leaving behind what they didn't need. In the central command room, Kirevex found what she was looking for, a subtle inconsistency in the wall paneling. "Help me with this," she instructed Tallow. Together they pushed against the panel, which slid away to reveal a narrow passage descending into darkness. The energy readings spiked. "We should inform the Alliance expedition," Tallow suggested nervously. "Not yet," Kirevex replied. "Admiral Zorix's team is here to demolish this outpost, not study it. We need to see what the humans were hiding first." The passage led to a massive underground chamber, a hangar bay that shouldn't have existed according to Alliance records. Inside stood 3 ships, unlike any human vessels in the archives. Their hulls were dark, almost light-absorbing, with no visible seams or rivets. They showed no signs of decay or rust. "These aren't 80 years old," Kirevex whispered. "These are new." A soft hum filled the chamber as lights activated around them. A voice spoke, causing both researchers to freeze. "Genetic profiles non-matched. Species identification Merindian. Threat assessment minimal. We're not here to threaten," Kirevex said quickly. "We're researchers." A figure emerged from behind one of the ships, a human female, startlingly alive. She was tall, dressed in a simple gray uniform with no insignia. Her dark skin contrasted with close-cropped silver hair, and her eyes held the weariness of someone who had seen too much. "Researchers who broke into a sealed facility," the human observed, her voice neutral. Interesting research methodology. Kira Vex stepped forward, her feathered crest rising in surprise. You're alive. The Alliance believes humans retreated to Sol or went extinct. The Alliance believes what we wanted them to believe, the human replied. My name is Commander Sofia Rivera, Earth Defense Force, and you've just complicated matters significantly. Above the planet, the Alliance cruiser Indomitable entered orbit. Admiral Zorix stood on the bridge, watching the planet's surface with 4 of his 6 eyes while the others monitored tactical displays. The demolition team reports the outpost appears intact. Admiral, his second-in-command, reported. And we're detecting unauthorized life signs inside. Merindian biosignatures. Zorix growled in annoyance. That researcher Kiravex. I warned the Council about her obsession with human artifacts. Prepare a retrieval team. Sir, the tactical officer interrupted. We're detecting unusual energy readings from the outpost, far beyond what human technology should be capable of. Zorix stiffened. Deploy the fleet in defensive formation. Authorization for immediate orbital strike if those readings increase. As the Alliance ships moved into position, a communication request flashed on the main screen. Zorix hesitated, then accepted. Kiravex's face appeared, her compound eyes reflecting unusual light patterns. Admiral, you need to stand down immediately. You've exceeded your authority, Doctor, Zorix replied coldly. The Council ordered this outpost destroyed. There are living humans here, Admiral. This is a first contact situation. Zorix laughed, a harsh barking sound. The humans aren't new species, Doctor. They're an irrelevant footnote in galactic history. The camera shifted, and Commander Rivera came into view. Admiral Zorix of the Taurian Empire, she said, her voice eerily calm. We've studied your career with interest, particularly your role in the annexation of former human colonies. Zorix's scales shifted color slightly, the only sign of his surprise. Humans abandoned those worlds. The Taurian Empire claimed them legally under Alliance law. You claimed what you thought was undefended, Rivera corrected. A critical error in judgment. Is that a threat, human? Your rusting technology is no match for a modern Alliance fleet. Rivera smiled thinly. You've been mocking our rusting ships for decades. We never bothered to correct you. Deep beneath the surface, something awakened. Throughout human space, in hidden outposts and abandoned stations, dormant systems suddenly activated. Signals bounced across quantum relays that the Alliance had never detected. On the bridge of the Indomitable, alarms blared. Multiple energy spikes, Admiral. The tactical officer shouted. They're coming from everywhere. The outpost, the planet's core, the moons. Impossible, Zorix snarled. Launch fighters and prepare main batteries. On the screen, Rivera remained calm. I wouldn't recommend that, Admiral. The Earth Defense Force has remained hidden by choice, not necessity. That choice has now ended. The planet's largest moon suddenly shimmered and vanished, its image melting away to reveal what had been hidden beneath the holographic camouflage. A massive station surrounded by ships. Not the rusting hulks that the Alliance mocked in their histories, but sleek vessels of impossible configuration, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. By God, gasped one of the bridge officers. How long has that been there? 80 years, Rivera answered, since we withdrew from Alliance space. Zorix's scales had faded to a pale yellow, a sign of extreme stress in his species. What do you want, human? The same thing we've always wanted, Admiral, to be left alone. But you and the Alliance couldn't respect that simple request. You assumed our absence meant weakness. The first human vessel rose from the planet's surface, a destroyer that dwarfed the Alliance cruiser. Its hull wasn't polished and gleaming like Alliance ships. Instead, it possessed a matte darkness that seemed to swallow light. No external weapons were visible, yet the sense of threat it projected was unmistakable. This is the EDF reckoning, Rivera continued. One of our older vessels. It could reduce your entire fleet to atoms before your sensors could lock onto it. She paused. But that's not why we're here. Then why reveal yourselves now? Kirevex asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. Because the galaxy is about to change, Rivera said, looking not at Admiral Zorix, but at Kirevex. And we wanted at least some witnesses who would understand what was happening and why. More ships emerged from hidden docks and camouflaged bases. Dozens, then hundreds. A fleet that had never retreated, never rusted away, but had been watching and waiting in the shadows of abandoned worlds. Withdraw your forces, Admiral, Rivera ordered. Return to Alliance space and deliver our message. Humanity is reclaiming what was ours. Anyone who stands in our way will learn why underestimating Earth was the greatest mistake in galactic history. As the human ships lit up the sky with power that defied Alliance understanding, Admiral Zorix finally realized the truth. Humanity hadn't been in decline. They had been preparing. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The reckoning dawned. The emergency session of the Galactic Alliance Council descended into chaos within minutes of Admiral Zorix's report. Representatives from 37 species shouted over each other, their translators struggling to keep pace with the explosion of languages and dialects. Impossible, thundered the Valerian ambassador, his gelatinous form pulsating with agitation. Human technology was cataloged and analyzed decades ago. They had nothing that could conceal an entire fleet. High Counselor Neva called for order, her crystalline voice cutting through the din. The evidence is undeniable. The humans have revealed at least 67 vessels of advanced design across 12 former Earth territories. The question is no longer whether this threat exists, but how to address it. From his position at the center of the chamber, Admiral Zorix looked diminished. His scales had not regained their former luster since his encounter at the Proxima outpost. The humans could have destroyed my fleet without effort, he admitted reluctantly. Instead, they issued demands. Immediate recognition of sovereignty over all former Earth territories and non-interference in their affairs. Outrageous. The Valerian quivered. Those territories have been developed by Alliance members for generations. The Taurian mining operations alone were built on stolen land, interrupted a new voice. All eyes turned to Kirevex, who stood at the chamber entrance. Beside her was a figure that made the entire council fall silent. A human female in a dark uniform with silver insignia. The council recognizes Dr. Kirevex, Neva stated formally, her crystalline structure reflecting tension in fragmented light patterns. We do not recognize her, companion. Then allow me to introduce myself, the human said, stepping forward. Captain Ilara Hayes, Earth Defense Force, Diplomatic Division. I am here as an observer and messenger. You have no standing in this chamber, the Valerian protested. Hayes smiled thinly. Yet here I stand. A fact you'll need to become accustomed to. 10 light years away, in what had once been a forgotten human mining colony, Commander Sofia Rivera stood on the bridge of the EDF Reckoning as it emerged from stealth orbit. Before her stretched the massive Taurian mining operation that had been extracting platinum and rare earths from the system for decades. Taurian command vessel is hailing us, her communications officer reported. On screen, Rivera ordered. The reptilian face of Commodore Drax appeared, his scales flushed deep orange with aggression. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted Taurian space. Withdraw immediately or be fired upon. Rivera studied him for a moment. This is Commander Rivera of the Earth Defense Force. This system, designated Arcturus 7 by humanity, remains sovereign human territory. Your operation is in violation of that sovereignty. Drax's secondary eyes blinked in surprise, but he recovered quickly. Earth abandoned its claims when it retreated from galactic affairs. The Taurian Empire claimed this system legally under Alliance salvage protocols. A convenient interpretation of law, Rivera replied. Nevertheless, we are reclaiming what is ours. You have 12 hours to evacuate all personnel. Preposterous, Drax snarled. This facility represents 10 trillion credits of investment. We will not abandon it to primitive. Rivera cut the transmission with a gesture. Deploy the sentinels, she ordered. From the Reckoning's lower bay, dozens of small, dark objects launched toward the mining operation. Each no larger than a personal transport, they positioned themselves at key points around the massive facility. Sentinels deployed, Commander, the tactical officer reported. Power at minimal levels. Maintain position and countdown, Rivera said calmly. Let's see if they're wise enough to comply. Back in the Alliance Council chamber, Captain Hayes walked the circular floor, seemingly unbothered by the hostile stares from the assembled representatives. For 80 years, humanity has watched the Alliance strip our abandoned outposts, claim our territories, and mock our supposed technological inferiority, she said. All while we rebuilt in secret. Rebuilt from what? Asked a Merindian counselor. Your disappearance was never explained. Hayes paused, meeting Kirivex's compound eyes briefly before answering. The event your historians call the human retreat was actually our response to the cascading tech virus, a sophisticated cyber weapon deployed against Earth's defense systems. Murmurs spread through the chamber. We never discovered which species created it, Hayes continued. But it targeted quantum communication networks, turning our own defense systems against us. In 48 hours, we lost 37 colony worlds and nearly 6 billion lives. This is the first we've heard of such an attack, High Counselor Neva said cautiously. Because we contained it at great cost, Hayes replied. Rather than risk the virus spreading through the galaxy, we severed all connections with Alliance networks, creating the illusion of retreat while we developed countermeasures and new technologies immune to such attacks. And now you return with threats and demands. The Valerian asked. We return with a warning, Hayes corrected. What you've seen is merely a fraction of Earth's true capability. We could have reclaimed our territories by force at any time in the past 50 years. Instead, we chose this approach first. Admiral Zorix leaned forward. What exactly did humanity develop during its isolation? Hayes smiled. Let me show you. She activated a small device on her wrist, and the council chamber's main holographic display illuminated with a live feed from the Arcturus system. On the bridge of the Reckoning, Rivera received the signal from Earth Command. Demonstration authorized, she acknowledged. Sentinels to active status. Around the Taurian mining operation, the small devices suddenly pulsed with blue energy. Taurian defense systems immediately locked on, and a volley of plasma torpedoes launched toward the nearest sentinels. The torpedoes passed straight through their targets as if they weren't there. They still don't understand, Rivera murmured. Activate Phase 1. The sentinels emitted a spherical field that expanded outward. As it touched the mining facility shields, the energy barriers simply winked out of existence. The field continued through the operation itself, passing through matter as if it wasn't there. Yet wherever it passed, all technology more sophisticated than simple mechanics ceased functioning. On the Taurian vessels, weapon systems died. Life support continued, but engines, shields, and communications went dark. The entire mining operation, a marvel of Taurian engineering that processed tons of ore per minute, fell silent for the first time in decades. Phase shift technology, Rivera explained to the horrified Taurian Commodore as emergency channels sputtered back to life. It selectively interferes with specific energy patterns. In this case, your power distribution systems. We could have targeted life support just as easily. Drax's scales had paled to a sickly yellow. This is impossible. Such technology violates fundamental laws of physics. Only the laws as you understand them, Rivera corrected. Your evacuation clock is still ticking, Commodore. I suggest you use the time wisely. In the council chamber, the representatives watched in stunned silence. The Taurian ambassador was frantically consulting with his government via secure channel, his scales shifting through colors of shock and rage. This technology could destabilize the entire alliance, High Counselor Niga finally said. If any species could selectively disable another's defenses, which is precisely why we developed it in isolation. Hayes replied. The phase shift field is just one of several technologies we created when we had no choice but to innovate or perish. Admiral Zorix studied the human with new respect and fear. What are humanity's terms? Recognition of our sovereignty over all former Earth territories. Non-interference in human affairs. And, Hayes paused, a full investigation into the origins of the cascading tech virus that nearly destroyed us. The chamber erupted again. Several species began hurling accusations at others, old suspicions suddenly given new life. Hayes raised her voice over the chaos. We don't seek revenge for past actions, but we will have justice, and we will have security. And if we refuse, the Valerian challenged, then we continue reclaiming what's ours, one system at a time. Hayes answered simply, you've seen we can do this without bloodshed if we choose. We prefer that approach. HFY stepped forward. There's something you're not telling us, Captain. A species doesn't develop technology like this just for defense. Hayes considered the xenorchaeologist for a long moment. Perceptive, Doctor. You're right. Our isolation led us to discoveries beyond what we've demonstrated today. Technologies that could change the fundamental nature of interstellar civilization. Such as, prompted Neva. That information remains classified, Hayes replied. But I am authorized to offer technological exchange in specific non-military sectors as part of any agreement. Medical science, for example, ecological remediation, sustainable energy. The council chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just reclaiming its place in galactic affairs, it was returning with the power to reshape them entirely. 3 days later, Rivera stood on an observation platform overlooking the now-evacuated Arcturus mining facility. Beside her, Kirevix marveled at the efficiency with which human technicians were repurposing the massive structure. You could have taken this back at any time, the xenorchaeologist observed. Why wait 80 years? Rivera watched as a new section of the facility unfolded from what had appeared to be solid hull plating. An entire research wing that had been phase-shifted into a dimensional pocket, now returning to normal space. We needed time, she answered. Time to ensure we couldn't be hurt again. Time to develop defenses against threats we couldn't even imagine. And, she hesitated, time to determine whether the Alliance could evolve beyond its imperial instincts. And what did you conclude? Kirevix asked. Rivera turned to face the alien researcher. The jury's still out. That's why we're proceeding cautiously, showing enough strength to deter aggression without revealing everything we've become. In orbit above them, the Reckoning was joined by 3 more vessels emerging from stealth, each larger than the last, their dark hulls absorbing the light of Arcturus rather than reflecting it. What happens next depends on your leaders, Rivera continued, whether they see this as an opportunity or a threat. Whether they choose diplomacy or conflict. And if they choose conflict? Kirevix asked quietly. Rivera's expression hardened. Then they'll discover why underestimating humanity was their greatest mistake. We don't want war, Doctor, but we've spent 80 years preparing for one. As if to emphasize her point, the largest of the human vessels suddenly illuminated with a web of blue energy that traced patterns across its hull. For a brief moment, it seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously, afterimages stretching across space like quantum echoes, before settling back into apparent solidity. The Council believes you're bluffing, Kirevix admitted, that you've shown your most impressive technology already. Rivera laughed softly. What you've seen is our diplomatic fleet, Doctor. The ships we deemed least likely to cause panic. She gestured toward the stars. The rest remain in phase shift, watching and waiting. Let's hope they never need to reveal themselves. As night fell on the reclaimed human world, the stars seemed to shine with new significance. Somewhere among them, the old powers of the galaxy were making their decisions, whether to welcome humanity's return or resist it. Either way, the era of mockery was over. The ships that had been dismissed as rusting relics had lit up the sky with power beyond imagination. And the galaxy would never be the same again.